beautiful. Thank you, John. Thank you. And welcome, everybody. Welcome to the first Sunday of November. And welcome to Unity of Joplin, Joplin, Missouri, United States of America. We're so glad to have you with us. We are going to begin this morning with our social media check in. If you would tweet this out, post it on your Facebook page, spread the word. I choose wisely at Unity of Joplin. Yeah, I choose wisely at Unity of Joplin. I started to say University of Joplin. Okay. And as always, we start with our gathering song. And today it is Great is Thy Faithfulness.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever wilt be. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Love everlasting and peace that endureth, thy own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow, blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you all notice we're in kind of a different setting this morning? We're in the library of Unity. The acoustics are just a little bit better. It's a little bit cozier, although we are socially distanced and masked up here. We have our production team. The two Michaels are here. John, thank you for your music. Always bless our music team. And we're missing Gary and Jerry in person here, but thank them for their gifts. And Lissa's here. Good morning. And Gordon. So we are ready to serve you today, and it is our honor and our pleasure. We are going to share a few announcements. And by the way, I'm Anne. I'm your master of ceremonies, if you will. Uh, but just a few announcements. The Rev's Ramblings and the Wednesday night word. I don't know if you're having trouble like I am because there's been a little time shift, okay? And those are now happening at 6 p.m. But it's okay because we can catch the replays right on our Facebook page. Yes. Oh, I lied. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. The Myers family is bringing us the Wednesday night word, and that one is at 6:30 Wednesday evenings. And of course, we give Gordon a night off tonight, but you can always catch us the rest of the week. Monday at noon is our silent unity prayer service. And we invite you, wherever you are in the world, to join us in prayer for a few moments at noon tomorrow. Speaking of prayer, we will be hosting an election day meditation Tuesday morning at 10 from 10 to 11. There is a Zoom link available for that if you'd like to join us from your home as we hold the high watch for the country on that day. Speaking of giving and receiving, we are preparing food for our neighbors for Thanksgiving Day. The board elected to do that at our last meeting. We've each kind of taken some categories of food, and if you would like to help out, I'll just put a plug in for me. I'm in charge of pumpkin pie. There's no way I'm baking a bunch of pies. So if anybody would like to help, Jefferson, as I recall, is doing the mashed potatoes. I'm sure a bag of potatoes would be helpful. You can always share your bounty with us by dropping it off here at the office. Uh, Office hours are Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 4, or email Gordon if you'd be willing to help us get food ready for the neighbors. And it's just to assure you, it's going to be like a drive-by, right? We're just going to hand bags out in containers and give that to the neighbors. And speaking of giving to the neighbors and to the community, Chase the Chill is happening again this year. You are invited to share gently loved, handmade, or even store bought scarves, hats, gloves, and drop those off here at the church during the month of November, too. All right. Tuesdays and Thursdays are pretty important days here at Unity of Joplin. The office is open, and so you can drop those off safely between 10 and 4. Wow, I feel like I'm just like, because there's a lot to talk about, right? Even though we're not in person, things are still happening here at Unity, as you can tell. So please dive in and join us. And you're going to want to join us tomorrow night because we have started Alyssa's class. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun that first night last week. Yes, the Christ. So it's not too late for you to join though. So please, you can sign on with a Zoom link. Gordon can send that to you. And we start at 6 o'clock. How many weeks will that continue? 4 more weeks. So please join us. You're going to learn a lot and have a good time as well. And we'll be sticking around today as usual on Zoom and Facebook. If you have any questions about the service, anything happening here at Unity, you're welcome to visit with Gordon and get your questions answered. All right. Oh, I hope you can enjoy the beautiful light coming through the stained glass windows. What a beautiful day we have, right? I encourage you to get out and enjoy it this afternoon. But right now, prepare yourself for the service. Take that deep centering breath and just know the power and presence is here with you and within you. And we'll start our service today with the reading of the daily word. And Michael, thank you so much for sharing it with us.
always happy. Today's daily word is discernment. Through spiritual discernment, I make wise choices. From time to time, I may question some of my decisions. If I have made a mistake, I make amends where appropriate, accept divine grace, and move forward. But how do I learn to make better choices now and in the future? I call upon my innate faculty of spiritual discernment. Just as Jesus went up the mountain to pray, I go apart and listen deeply for divine insight. Spiritual understanding lies in the mind of God. In this silence, the highest and best for all is revealed. Throughout through meditation and prayer, I develop the power of spiritual discernment. I learn from the wisdom of the indwelling spirit to make wise choices. I did not receive it from a human source, nor was I taught it, but I received it through a revelation of Jesus Christ. Galatians 1:12.
Thank you. And we'll have our next song, Raising the Veil, and that will be followed by meditation with Elisa and special music with John, and then our lesson from Gordon.
I'm raising the veil between me and my God. No separation, no distance at all. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. I'm raising the veil. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. I'm raising the veil. I want to know you, oh God. I'm raising the veil. I want to see you, oh God. I'm raising the veil. I want to hear you, oh God. I'm raising the veil.
Right here and right now, God is in our heart. Let us begin our meditation with some words from Scripture found in John. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid. So as we take this moment and we close our outer eyes and we move into our opening our inner eyes, breathing in peace, breathing out love, knowing that there is no separation between us and God, between you and me. We breathe at this time of this raising of the veil, where our eyes are fully open. We no longer imagine the world we wish to see. We see it and we feel it. And we let this be the space we move into the stillness, knowing that it is our divine inheritance to be in this peace, to be in this practice of love. And we pause. And in that same breath, that very breath that we breathe, we know it is the breath of God. The power of Ruha. That is our vibrational footprint that we leave here together. And in that footprint, mighty things are unfolding in beautiful, glorious, unexpected ways. We're ready for those choices, those daily choices and we embrace them, knowing that the Spirit of God is working in, through, and as us. Yes, we say thank you. Thank you in the name and the nature of the living, loving Christ, alive and awake, and all its perfection in each of us. And so it is. Amen.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also in the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Good morning. It is good to be with you on this day. Thank you, John. Thank you, Michael and Ann and Alyssa. And hi, Janet. And hi, Carolyn. Carolyn Stapleton. Hi. Carolyn is on on my watch party. I hope you all are doing a watch party, those of you who are on Facebook. Just because it's fun to do. Spend some time with your friends. And we are here today to spend some time together. You know, I have gotten so used to wearing a mask anymore. I often forget I'm wearing it. I was out the other day and I went to take a drink of water and had my mask on. But that's a good thing. It's a choice. It is. I choose to wear a mask. I choose to wear a mask to keep those around me healthy and to keep myself healthy. It's something easy and simple I can choose to do to be supportive, be a blessing in our world today. We all have choices. And that's what today's lesson is about our power of choice, our time to choose. We are at a very important moment in our history as a nation, as a people. In 2 days hence, we will once again have the opportunity to make a choice. And I know many of you out there probably have already done so, have probably already voted, and that's great. If not, you will have the opportunity on Tuesday to vote. Please wear a mask while you're standing in line. I want you to be around for quite a long time. And I know for many of you in Unity, the choice that you will be making or have made probably was easy or will be easy. But there are those, of course, that for some it may not be so easy. We know that. And it is not my place here to tell you how to vote. I'm not going to endorse any candidate or anything like that. But I do have people that ask me for guidance, and I will just say this. If you are still not decided about how you're going to vote, I invite you to, and you are a Unity person, I invite you to go to our website and look at our social action statement and our diversity statement and, weigh that and choose how you are led to vote. Or you can follow the advice of our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, who wrote this: "Our safety lies in recognizing our needs and balancing our power of judgment with love. Then there will spring forth a new conquering power, which will express itself in righteousness and justice without condemnation." We are blessed in that we live in a place where we can make these choices, where we have these resources available, and we can choose to go to different websites, different books, different media to help us make those choices. As I said, this lesson today, which is entitled "How Big is Your Frying Pan?" I'll get to that in a few minutes. But this lesson today is all about choices and how we make choices in our lives. Every moment of every day we are making choices. And our choices can run the gamut from the great big ones, like who will be our president, who will be our leaders, to where will we live? What will our career be? Who will we live with? And then there's those everyday choices we sometimes make without even thinking about them. Choices like, what will I have for breakfast? What clothes will I wear? Will I get up and come to church, be it virtually or in person when we can do that again? But how often do we think about how we make our choices? What we use to make our choices? From our Unity perspective, we have our 12 powers. And specifically, the power we use to make most of our choices, combined with all of the others, is our power of judgment. Nowadays, we tend to say discernment or wisdom. But the fact is, all of the time, in ways big and small, we use our power of judgment to make choices, our power of discernment, to discern what choices will be for our greatest good, what choices will be for the greatest good of those around us. So it's helpful then to understand just what this power is and how we use it. One of the things we have to keep in mind is that everything that is happening in the macrocosm, everything that is happening in our world right now, in our nation, in our culture, is but a reflection of what is happening within each one of us, and each one of us as a collective consciousness. And so it is useful to understand how we can use our power of discernment to shift things, to make a choice for something different. You know, right now we look around us in the outer and we see turmoil and we see violence and racism and protesting and arguing and just chaos. It is. And we argue about whether or not these things are real. They are. We know they are real. And we can get into arguments with people about who is causing it, what is causing it, why is it happening, who is to blame. And we can choose to stay in that level of discussion and that level of experience, which is a very, very low frequency. Even though it feels passionate, it's a low frequency of engagement. Or we can choose to rise up to a higher frequency of engagement, which is, ironically enough, it's a higher frequency, but it's calmer, it's more focused, it's more grounded in spirit. And in that place, we can discern the true cause of the experience we are having as individuals and as a nation, as a people. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at this power and how we use it and how it works in these experiences. I'm going to start with a paragraph from The Mysteries of John, written by Charles Fillmore. And it says this: man's safety lies in recognizing, I'm going to bring it up to modern language. Our safety lies in recognizing our needs and balancing our judgment faculty with love. Then there will be a springing forth of a new power, which will express itself in righteousness and justice without condemnation. Sound familiar? In our individual lives, in our culture, in our nation, in the world, every choice we make is based on really one thing, and that is getting our needs met. At low frequency life, the needs are our basics, survival needs, our concept of what we need just to survive physically, then mentally, and then emotionally, and then at the highest level, spiritually. And it really boils down to, where do we perceive our power comes from? Does it come from out there, from other people, from institutions, from structures and forms? Or does it come from our indwelling Christ power, our indwelling presence of the divine, the spirit that we are? And those two levels of perception are what is driving much of what we are seeing in our world today. For those who have what's called an outer locus of control, their idea of power comes from out there. And it's many of us, and it's probably been all of us at one time or many times. I know there are times when I feel like I'm looking out there for my strength and my power, and then, oh, wait a minute, that may not be that great, and I look within. And we go back and forth because we are human beings, which are very outward focused, having a spiritual experience, which is inward focused, or spiritual beings having an outer human experience. It works both ways. And it's mostly based on where we are focusing in the moment. So if we are in an experience of an outer locus of control, if we think our power comes from out there, what are our needs? Well, our needs are safety. Number one, safety. Safety from what? Well, in that outer place, in that low vibrational frequency of consciousness, that idea of safety means safety from others, especially if they're different than us, because it's kind of unknown. It's this scary. Security. There's this huge fear of losing what we have because we think we only have what we can see and what we can touch. So there's the fear of losing what we have, this idea that if I give up some of what I have to somebody else, there won't be enough. There's not going to be enough money, enough food, enough oil, enough whatever, fill in the blank. Not enough. That's the consciousness. There's an idea of there has to be a status quo. We can't try something new because it could fail. It may not work. Things were better in the old days because that was comfortable. We knew that. And if we think about it, it probably wasn't, but it was known. It was comfortable. But the biggest need of all in that lower vibrational frequency, in that outer locus of control idea, is that we have to belong to a tribe, and that the needs of the tribe are paramount. It requires strong leadership, strong leaders. We look for leaders. We look for our power, our strength out there. Think about the Old Testament. You know, the Bible was created in years after Jesus, 300 years after Jesus, and it was divided into two parts, what we call the Hebrew Scriptures, or the Old Testament, and the Christian Scriptures, or the New Testament. And the Old Testament is very authoritarian. It's based on law, 10 commandments, and the 10 commandments are, thou shalt and thou shalt not. And you better shall or shalt not, or you're going to be in big trouble. But then there's the New Testament. And the New Testament speaks to a different paradigm. And it is that place that we're expected to grow to. Oftentimes we're in Old Testament consciousness, but we're invited to be in the New Testament consciousness. And that New Testament consciousness means an inner locus, focusing on the Christ presence, just as they were focused on Jesus, representing the Christ. It's spiritually centered. It's judgment, balanced with love. And when that happens, when we move to that place, when we choose to move to a different vibrational frequency, we experience and create a new paradigm, a paradigm where our needs shift and our needs become acceptance of others, wanting others who inspire us, who bring color, who bring diversity to our experience, who bring new ways of being and thinking and showing up in the world. It shifts us to a belief in abundance where we see an unlimited supply of every resource we need. And that doesn't mean we waste our resources, by the way. It means we are responsible for them. And we are directed to use them for the highest good of all. And even if it's a resource where we know eventually it's going to run out, we are open to divine ideas which inspire us and direct us to find new resources, better resources, more abundant resources. So we have this idea that we live in an expansive, unlimited universe. We are invited to move into a realm where progress and unfoldment and evolution is encouraged, where we are encouraged to implement new ideas, to retake our old ideas and refine them, and be willing to try and fail. Oh, we don't like failure if we're in that outer locus of control. If we're in that Old Testament thinking failure is bad, it's displeasing to God. In the inner locus, the higher vibrational frequency, the New Testament consciousness, we are invited to grow and experience. And if we fail, there's something called grace. And grace says failure is but a part of the learning. We find out what doesn't work so that then we can find what does work. In that consciousness, we're also invited into collaborative leaderships, to look for leaders that inspire and lead by example and empower others to do the same. And we long to be a part of a more global family, which is more diverse, which is curious, which is supporting, and which is accepting of differing ideas. Think about the difference between two people in the Bible, Moses and Jesus. Two pivotal people in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament. Think about them and contrast them. Old Testament, the Israelites were focused on becoming the dominant power, wandering through the wilderness, conquering towns and villages, and becoming wealthy and powerful. And they succeeded mightily, and they failed mightily. The Old Testament is a constant story of building up kingdom and collapsing, building up and collapsing, and turning to God and then turning away from God. The law was based, as I said, on absolutes. Thou shalt not. 10 commandments and 640 laws? 640 laws. Yes, you'll need to know that. Write that down. But in the New Testament, Jesus brings a new paradigm. Jesus brings a new focus, a new concept of evolution. And the law that Jesus taught was taught to everybody. Jesus didn't just speak to Israelites. He didn't just speak to Jews. He spoke to the Romans. He spoke to all of the Greeks, all of the Gentiles, all of the other people that were in that area in his lifetime. And he taught things like this. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. He was saying, we are one family. That which I do affects everybody, every single person. When I lift somebody up, I am lifting all of us up. That statement, if I am lifted up, I draw all others to me, wasn't just an egocentric statement of one man. What he was saying is when we lift up our consciousness, others are lifted up too. When we are around people who are lifting up their consciousness, we are lifted up. Anytime the I am, our name that God gave us, anytime we are in that consciousness of I am and we lift that up to a higher plane of understanding, a new paradigm, we draw others up with us. Another teaching he had was this, and this is from Luke. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus, and he said, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" Jesus replied. "How do you read it?" I love the way he taught. If you look carefully, he taught by asking, well, what do you think? Or he said things like, your faith is making you whole. He invites us and invited them to look within, to choose, to look within, to not look just to him for the answer, but to look within ourselves. So he invites this guy to look within. He says, well, what do you think it says? And he says, well, it means love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. Jesus had already said that. And love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus said, you have answered correctly. Way to listen. Way to listen. You have answered correctly. If you do this, you will have life and have it abundantly. You have the ability to choose. Do this or don't do it. It's a choice, and you can choose whichever. The man, though, wanted to push it a little further, and he said, well, okay, but who is my neighbor? He said, love your neighbor as yourself. Who's my neighbor? In an outer locus of control, neighbor is the people who live around us, the people of our tribe, the people who think like we do, look like we do, love who we do, etc. But Jesus said, well, let me give you an example. Let me tell you a story that touches on that. He says, there was a man going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was attacked by robbers. And he was beaten, and they stripped him of his clothes and all his possessions, and they went away, leaving him laying on the ground, bleeding and almost dead. And a priest came walking down from the temple. And he looked and he saw the man, and he passed by on the other side of the road. Why? Because the man was of a different tribe, and he was not supposed to be around him. Now here's this guy laying on the ground in agony, bleeding, probably unconscious, probably dying. And the priest of all people walks away. A little while later, another man comes by, a Levite, and a Levite in those days was like supposed to be really a good person. The Levite comes walking by and he sees him and, oh no, I can't be around him. He's not from my tribe. He's not my people. I will walk away and leave him. And then a Samaritan came. Now, Samaritans were, kind of considered lower class. But the Samaritan comes and he sees the man. He goes over to him and he takes pity upon him and he bandages his wounds, pours oil and wine on them, and puts the man on his own donkey and takes him to an inn and says to the innkeeper, take care of this man. Here is 2 denarii to pay any expenses, and I will come back next week and pay whatever other expenses there are. But take care of this man, help him heal, and I will make sure it's all taken care of. And Jesus ends the story. He says, which of these 3 people do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? And the expert in the law replied, he was an expert, well, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus says, yes, go and make that choice yourself to do the same. Have mercy on people who are different from you. It's a choice. So everything we're talking about is a choice. And these stories that are in the Bible, that are in all sacred scriptures, are much more than just warm, fuzzy stories to tell your children in Sunday school. We all grew up with those stories, those of us who grew up in traditional churches or even in Unity. And they are so much more than just warm, fuzzy stories. Oh, that's nice. What a great story. The Samaritan was a good guy. Yeah. They were teaching moments. They are teaching moments. And they are teaching us about how to make choices, because everything is about choices. In the first example I gave you, the first story, the choice was to be centered in spirit, trusting that there was enough for everyone. Being centered in appearances means there's not enough. And it works on the individual level too. When we are centered in experience, we open up our checkbook and we say, oh, there's not enough. We look at our paycheck and we say, oh, there's not enough. We look at our food in our cupboards or whatever. Oh, there's not enough. There's never enough. When we're focused in spirit, we say, I am abundantly supplied in every way. Being outwardly focused was the common way of being focused in those days. And guess what? Not much has changed. Not much has changed. In that second example, which was from Luke, Jesus was asked, what must be done to have eternal life? That's actually a bad translation. From the original Greek, the question was, what must be done to have a fulfilling life? What must I do to have the fullness of life? People didn't argue about eternal life in those days. They argued about a full life. So what choices do I have to make to have a fulfilling life? And Jesus gave him an example: to do what was normal for the injured man who was an outsider, or the choice to get out of your comfort zone, to go and minister to somebody who is different, who may be considered unclean, not of your tribe. And Jesus' final question was, which of these do you think was a neighbor to the injured man? Go and do that. Choose to get out of your comfort zone. Sue Sicking, in her book Only Believe, wrote this: where we see strife, bitterness, racial prejudice, and judgment of others, expression and judgment of others, expression and interpretation of God, we are seeing the rejected, worthless leavings of an old regime, the passing of an old state of consciousness built on a sense of separation. That's the choice we are faced with in this moment in history. It's the choice we face every day. Are we one or are we separate? Are we one with God or are we separate from God? Are we one with our neighbor, with our tribe, or are we separate from our tribe? Are we one with those who are not of our tribe, or are we separate from our tribe? Ultimately, we've missed what the real choices are in the discussions that have gone on the last couple months, you know, in politics and everything else. We've missed what the real choice is. The choice is not between political parties or individual candidates. It's not a choice of what kind of nation state we are going to be, or if we are going to continue as a nation state at all. The only choice that ultimately matters is, do we choose oneness or separation? Do we choose oneness or separation? What is oneness? Oneness is the consciousness that says the Father and I are one. God and I are one. The Creator and I are one. We are all divinely connected. We are all expressions of God. I am part of a greater whole, and thus I choose to treat the greater whole, every single individual piece of it, with dignity and respect and empowering and love. Or we can choose separation. What is separation? Separation says, well, I belong to a tribe, and I reject those who are not like me. God is an entity out there somewhere. And only those who believe as I believe have value. What about on a personal level? What about the choices we make as individuals, not political? What about the choices we make day to day? Our choices can be inner. I choose to turn within for guidance and inspiration. I center myself in divine love, which guides me and directs me in all that I do. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Choice determines ultimately whether we grow or tread water. As individuals, as peoples, as cultures, as nations, as a species. I will say this. I don't believe that in any level of consciousness, we are ever in a place where we don't grow. I believe we are always growing spiritually. The difference is, if we choose to grow intentionally, we grow quickly. Amazing miracles happen. If we are unconscious about our growth, if we're just outer focused, barely struggling to get by, doing what we think we need to do to stay safe, if we make that choice, we're still growing spiritually, but it's very slow. And it's usually through adversity rather than through grace. We want to grow with grace. Really, the only choice we really ever make in any area of life is whether or not we grow and expand and evolve. Whether or not we choose to use our power of discernment to stretch in new directions and new ways to try new beliefs, new thinking, new ways of showing up. Maybe even just a new breakfast cereal. But it's all about growth. Nothing happens if we don't ever try anything different. I heard a story last weekend that I'm going to share with you. And it's a story about a man during COVID, you know, and like so many of us, can't really go out and get together in groups or anything like that. So he decided to take up fishing. And he went out and went to the store and bought a new fishing pole and all the gear and all the lures and got his fishing license and everything. Now, he'd never fished before. But he read lots, went online, you know, Googled it, got all kinds of techniques and ideas, and he went down to the river and threw his line out and was fishing, and hour after hour went by, and he never caught a fish. And as he's sitting there, he happens to look upstream, and he sees an old man up there, ways upstream, who's just hauling in fish after fish after fish. As fast as he could throw his line out, he's bringing a fish back in. And he's watching him. And he notices that this old man is doing something strange. Every time he brings a fish in, he lays it on the ground. And some of them he then throws back, and some of them he keeps. And the guy's thinking, well, what is he doing? Is he throwing back, you know, One said he doesn't think it'll taste good, or one said it will grow more, or what. So he finally says, I'm going to go talk to the man. So he gets up and he goes walking up. First, he puts his mask on and he goes up and socially distanced. He says, hi. And he says, I see you're catching lots of fish. You must fish a lot, right? The man says, oh, yep, I fish all the time. Yeah. And he says, I also noticed that you're putting them on the ground there, and then you throw the biggest fish back and you keep the small ones. What's up with that? And the man says, well, you see this stick right here? Yeah. He says, that stick just happens to be the same length as the diameter of my frying pan. And if the fish is bigger than that stick, it will not fit in my frying pan. Oh, okay. How often are we like that? How often do opportunities and possibilities and ideas come to us, but they don't fit into the frying pan of our consciousness? And so we throw them back. What would happen if we got a bigger frying pan? How many of us have ever thought about getting a bigger frying pan, expanding our consciousness? We have two sizes. Which do we choose? If we had a bigger frying pan, we could accept bigger fish. We could accept bigger ideas, and we could internalize them. This story struck me for several reasons. One, I like to fish. And two, the idea of what fish represent. Metaphysically, fish represent ideas of multiplication, ideas of expansion, ideas of increase. Charles Fillmore wrote, the reason Jesus so often used fish to illustrate his teachings is that he was a living demonstration of ideas. And all that he did was from the realm of ideas rather than the realm of effects. Jesus' focus was not out there on things, on appearances. It was in here, on spirit. And spirit knows no limits. Jesus made a choice. He used his power of discernment to choose to come from the realm of ideas, of possibilities, of expansion, of prosperity, of perfect health, of peace, rather than the realms of the lower frequencies, realms of the old status quo, realms of lack, realms of illness, realms of disharmony. It really is all about choice. Same with the parable of pouring old wine or new wine into old wineskins. What happens when you do that? New wine, pour it into an old skin. The leather has gotten dry and brittle. It springs leaks. It's inflexible. It's prone to being torn apart. It may be contaminated. Where do we choose to put our new ideas? In a consciousness of growth? In a consciousness of expansion? In the consciousness of spirit? Or in the consciousness of limitation, of lack, of the world? We use the power of discernment to make wise choices all of the time. And the ultimate question we should then be asking ourselves when we are making a choice are these. Does my choice cause me to stretch? Does it provide the opportunity to grow? Does it inspire me to get a bigger frying pan? Does it invite me to learn new skills, to embrace new ideas? Does it cause me to look within and maybe release old ideas? Maybe let go of old beliefs. You know, there's a lot of fishy things going on in the world. Yes, I know that was a bad pun, but I couldn't resist. There's a lot of fishy things, but a lot of fishy ideas in the world. Small ones, big ones. Are we going to limit ourselves? Big dreams and small dreams. What choice are we going to make? Will you choose what your soul, your spirit is calling you to do, is inviting you to do? If you do, miracles happen. Miracles happen. I'm just going to take a moment and share a little bit of my experience with that. Way back in way back BC before COVID, 2014, I began to feel a restlessness. I couldn't identify it. I thought, what is this all about? I thought and used my intellect. And finally, I went within in spirit. I actually went on a vision quest. And I made a list of, what do I like in my life? What do I feel like needs to change? And I just knew something had to shift. And I won't go into all of it because it's going a little long today. But, through a series of events and all of that, I ended up being invited to come to Joplin. And wow, that was a big choice. I mean, there's called into play some big power of discernment. Should I go to Joplin? Should I leave what I love, what's normal, what I know, to go into the unknown? And so I did what, we all do. I said, well, I'll make a list of pros and cons. Now, that is a good thing to do. That is a step you can use. And the pros were this. Well, what a great opportunity. Here is a church that's willing to support me on my ministerial path. Wow, great. But even that at that point wasn't that big a burning desire anymore, because I really considered that I already was on a ministerial path, that it was heart, not paper. There is some advantages to having the paper, by the way. And I learned a lot in the process. But other pros were chance to experience life in another part of the country. I'd be way closer to Unity Village. I mean, 2 hours instead of 24 hours away, right? What about cons? Well, my life was in New Mexico. My daughter and grandson were in New Mexico. My friends were in New Mexico. Albuquerque is a much larger city. There's a whole lot more diversity. There's no tornadoes. Yeah, that was a big one. And yeah, I'm just going to be honest. Joplin is not as prosperous as many other big cities are. And we're working on changing that. But that was the truth. Boy, based on that, it would have been a tough choice. And then, because I am a spiritual person, as you are, as all of you are, I turned within. I said, all right, Spirit, what should I do? And God said, let there be light. Let there be a new light. Let there be a journey. Let there be an adventure. You'll get to meet new people. You'll make new friends. You'll get to experience life in a whole new way. You'll learn new things. You'll get that thing that says you are an ordained minister. And I said, really? Are you sure? I listened. And of course I came. And you know what, though? When we listen, God always has an extra surprise that we won't know about in the beginning. We will not. Jesus said, it is God's good pleasure to give you all that the kingdom has to offer. What I had no clue, no premonition, nothing, was that I would meet Novella, my wife, and get married. None of that would have happened if I hadn't chosen to go within and listen to Spirit. So in conclusion, what are some steps we can use? Because if you're like me and a Taurus, you like to have concrete steps. Okay, what are some steps we can use to make good choices, to use our power of discernment? Number one, go to God first. Ask God, whether it be Spirit, the Tao, Brahman, whatever. Go to the God of your being and ask, what should I do? What should I do? And look for signs. Believe it or not, signs are all around us. It's amazing when I'm in that consciousness, I see signs that say, yes, do this. But you have to be in that consciousness first. And you have to choose to be open to the signs that are all around us. Number two, meditate. Meditate in the stillness and quiet and see if something comes up from the depths. It will. It may not come up in that moment, but it will come up. Number three, sleep on it. Sleep on it. Many of you know who Paramahansa Yogananda was. Very great guru teacher, came over from India in the 1940s. And he had a technique. When he wanted to make a decision, he would write the choices on a piece of paper and put them under his pillow and then sleep on them at night. Now, there's really nothing magical about that, because what's happening, you're using a kinesthetic process to get the brain working, to get the subconscious working, because that's what happens when you sleep. And then the answers begin to come up. And finally, one of the things you can do is ask yourself, is this what I should do? And just start writing. It's called automatic writing and stuff like that. Just start writing whatever comes up, and don't judge it. Don't try to direct it. Just let it flow, and you'll be amazed at what can come up. And again, there's nothing wrong with making a list of the pros and cons. Just don't be stuck with that. Don't let that stick you. But it is part of a process that is beneficial. And remember this, finally. Remember, even if you choose wrong, you didn't choose wrong. Even if you find, oh, that choice really didn't work out the way I wanted it to, it's only bad if you do not recognize the fact that you can change it. There's something called grace. Failure is but part of learning. And good choices and bad choices are all part of that process. Judgment, wisdom, discernment, coupled with love, and all of the other 12 powers work together in harmony to move us forward if we let them. But one of the most important other powers we combine with it is love. I'm reminded of what Paul wrote. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. And whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the peace of God will be with you. So take these ideas, put them into practice. Make choices using your spiritual power of discernment, and you will never, ever go wrong. Namaste.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you. Thank you. I usually ask, how good can you stand it? And now I'm going to ask myself, how big is your frying pan? So while you're out fishing on this beautiful day, I'm heading to Target to get a bigger frying pan. And we want to ask that question of our good, right? As we share our tithes and love offerings. I kind of skipped over that directive of how to share your gift earlier, just by going to our website, unityofjoplin.org, and clicking on that donate button in the upper right-hand corner. And I also am remiss in not acknowledging Billy, who's in the Facebook chat taking care of things for us today. And I bet if he hasn't already, he will post that link so you can share your good today. We always like to do that with our blessing, and I'll invite you to join me in that now. Just symbolically hold those gifts in your hands or in your heart. In a universe overflowing with the allness of God, all of the needs of Unity of Joplin and those we serve are bountifully met. From every direction, known and unknown, expected and unexpected, our abundant good comes to us now. And we just affirm these tithes and offerings are dedicated to the will and work of Spirit through Unity of Joplin and for the highest good of all. Thank you, God. So if you are just stopping by for the first time, we welcome our visitors. If you have landed on our Facebook page, we're so grateful to have you here, and we invite you to keep coming back. You can always check out what's happening at Unity of Joplin through our Facebook page or the website that I mentioned earlier, unityofjoplin.org. And we always especially appreciate our children. They are our future, and that includes our inner child as well. So if Sam's out there, good morning, Sam. Any other children joining us today, this blessing is for you. Children, you are a perfect child of God, and God and I love you just the way you are. Yes, it's so true. And it's birthday Sunday. It's also, it would have been potluck Sunday. So, you know how I like to hear what you're going to be eating? Drop in the chat one of your favorite November comfort foods, and we'll just pretend that we're going to be sharing that meal together today. Do we have the birthday song, Michael? Awesome. Okay. And yeah, drop in the chat too. Who are we celebrating this month? I know we're celebrating Susie. Amani. Yeah, awesome. Hey. And yeah, just let us know. And we surround you in a wonderful month and giving thanks for your journey to the planet. All right.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Birthday, dear Lunatic. Happy birthday to you.
That's all right, because the wishes are true. They're from our heart to you. And yeah, it's okay. All right. Thank you again so much for being with us. If you'd like to stick around afterwards and chat with Gordon, feel free. But for now, we are going to sing our peace song and do our prayer for protection.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be.
We are family. Let's walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my song of love. To take each moment and live each moment, peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. The light of God surrounds us.
The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Amen. Have a great week, you guys. Yes, yes. Hope to see you then.